why are there no aspirational role models for people our age? Why is that suddenly when you get to a certain age, all of a sudden it's all about accepting this kind of grim reality of decline?
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I talk with fascinating, talented, and inspiring guests who reflect on the adventures and challenges of aging and who are living their lives with vibrance and purpose. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist, writer, and fellow Zestful Ager. I want to invite you to my brand new free webinar, Zestful Aging. Here's how you do it. You can sign up at NicoleChristina.com. And as always, I appreciate your feedback. Well, I have my Jack Russell Terrier Sparky right beside me and my coffee in my hand. So let's begin. Today we're speaking with David Harry Stewart, who's an award-winning photographer and the founder of Ageist, a global media company whose purpose is to reinvent how life is lived, experienced, and understood by those over 50. He's an expert on the new life phase that is emerging among this financially empowered yet underserved demographic, and the Ageist has been called the Vogue magazine of the online aging space. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you. So great to be here.
It's a beautiful, beautiful online magazine.
Oh, you're so kind. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about how it came to be. I know that you've done a lot of ad photography and you had a booming career in doing the media. How did you come to turn the corner and say, I want to do something different?
Well, it was really not, there was no grand plan. What happened was that it was about 4 years ago, I guess. I was, as you mentioned, I've been a commercial photographer for a long time, and I'd worked on, just a little bit about the background here. I've worked for pretty much every Condé Nast magazine, every Hearst magazine. I've done like a dozen covers of the New York Times magazine, and I've done maybe 1,000 advertising campaigns. Mm-hmm. And what I was noticing was that in my advertising work, I'm getting older, and the people I'm photographing are sort of staying the same age. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of interesting. And then I had this moment where I'd been hired by one of the, not to be named, most well-known youth marketing companies to do a campaign. And it was a really big thing that went on for months, and at the end of it, I said, by the way, all the people that we just photographed for these big billboards, none of them pay for the product. It's their parents that are buying it. And I said, why did we just do this? It doesn't make any sense to me. And they said to me, well, we sell to younger people because that's what we know how to do. And so this kind of light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, oh, that explains a lot. So,
and were they welcome to this analysis, or did they just want you to keep taking pictures and proceeding with the plan?
Well, the interesting thing, this was at the end of this big campaign, and I spoke to the people who led the campaign at the agency about this, and I also said, did you tell your client this? And they said, oh, no, we don't tell them that. I said, okay, that's fine. So I thought about this for a little bit, and I came back to them, and I said, there's a huge opportunity here that, we can do something here together if you like. And they were very thoughtful, and they said, no, we can't do that because you're asking us to time travel into the future. You're asking me, the guy who led the effort there, he was a very smart guy. He was about 32, I want to say. And he said, "You're asking me to time travel 20, 25 years in the future. I have no idea what that's like. I can't do that." Mm-hmm. And that, then like the next piece fell into place in my mind. And I thought, well, that just makes a world of sense, because in the same way that if, say you had a product that was aimed at some other specific market segment, say, I'll just pick one, like, African American women. Would you hire a bunch of white guys to do that? No, you wouldn't do that. Because as many focus groups as they went to, as much literature as they read, they'd blow it, right? They wouldn't get it right. they wouldn't get the messaging quite right. And I thought, you're correct about that. And it explains so much of what goes on in the marketing world, where there's something, the stats that I read are that 6% of the people who work in advertising and marketing are over 50. And 40% of the American population is over 50. And those 6% are probably not doing creative. They're senior management. And the people...
So they're not representative.
Exactly, right. So the people that are doing the creative are the people who are, in their 20s and early 30s. So as they're doing creative that's aimed at people like us, they do their best, but they kind of miss. So I thought, well, let's investigate this a little more. And we did a lot of research with my founding partner, Matt Hurst. We did thousands of hours of interviews trying to understand what was different about people like myself and all the people I knew versus how we were being portrayed in the media. And really what that meant is, how are we living differently now than how our parents lived? Mm-hmm. Because what's being portrayed in so much of media, and by media I mean television, film, even like the New York Times, not to mention pharma and, AARP and a lot of that. Mm-hmm. It's really not how we're living now, at least the people I know. So we talked to a lot of people, and we kind of found out this whole new way that people were living, which was really how myself and all my friends were living, but we hadn't really taken the time to analyze what that was.
So there was a huge gap in understanding about how we are now. Mm-hmm. I see. So it needed to be, people needed to learn about it and understand this enormous change in the way people over 45 are living now. They were thinking about this demographic in terms that no longer exist. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think partially it's educating people that things are different now. But the people that are living this way, like, I don't need to be educated about this, and you don't, or any of our friends. It's for people like us, Aegis provides a vehicle of affirmation. So people look at it and they say, "Oh my gosh, that's me. I'm there. There are more people like me." Mm-hmm. So it's if we think about this in terms of, say, other population demarkers, so gender or race are the most obvious ones, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but if you look at the way, say, women were portrayed 100 years ago, maybe not so well, or if you look at the way really other ethnic groups were portrayed even 40 or 50 years ago, not so affirmative, and not so like there was nothing to aspire to. And what we say is, why is this? Like, why are there no aspirational role models for people our age? Why is that suddenly when you get to a certain age, all of a sudden it's all about accepting this kind of grim reality of decline? Why can't we have people that are really kind of great and say like, oh, I want to be like that?
So, is one of the goals for Aegis to promote social change? Is that kind of on one of the things that you think about, that this is offering people a new way to view themselves, and that benefits them and also the culture? Is that part of what you're up to?
Well, that's what our readers tell us. They express a lot of gratitude for us showing a way of like a different way of living, and a more, what we say is we just kind of move the frame from something that's medicalized and ultimately infantilized to something that's more powerful and aspirational, but also inspirational and attainable. So, if you look through our things, we'll do a famous person maybe once a year or twice a year, and I could do one every week. The PR people really want like I live in Los Angeles, there's a lot of that. But we stay away from that because we feel that celebrity culture is just kind of a different world. That's not attainable. So why not look for these amazing people that are just hidden in plain sight around us and illuminate them? So if we use our skill set, my skill set as a photographer, we have very good writers who write for a lot of the bigger magazines, and we use that skill set to illuminate people who have amazing stories, and we show them in a way as if it is Vanity Fair. Like those are the standards we hold ourselves to.
How interesting. Yeah, how interesting that, I'm very curious about this idea. Well, I could get all the celebrities because I interact with them. I can live in that world, but that's not really what I'm looking for. I mean, that, you must be one of the few people who hold that view.
Well, isn't there enough of that out there already? I mean, right? Like, do we really need to know more about, what kind of toilet paper Kylie Jenner uses? Like, who cares?
Yeah. You have a very different name. You must be familiar with the work of Ari Shapiro. He was one of the first photographers who said, I want to do older women's fashion. And,
Iris Apple and all that.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yep. And I just butchered her name. It's Apple, I think.
Yes.
But yes, Ari.
Yes.
I have met Ari. I know some of the people in Ari's books. And I think they're fascinating. I think we tend to go more towards the narrative. And telling people's stories. What's their arc? What is it? And to be in Aegis, we insist on people who are doing something now and looking towards the future to do something. So if you've done some kind of amazing thing 20 years ago, that's really wonderful, and we're happy for you. But what are you doing now?
It sounds like it's about looking forward and being optimistic. I see.
Yes, optimistic. Exactly. That's us.
Whole different frame.
Right.
So interesting. But, I have to say, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a certain subtlety about your profiles. And I'm going to be in the senior games, the National Senior Games. And some of the profiles it's sort of simplistic. It's like, this gentleman had prostate cancer and now he's doing the discus, It seems maybe a bit more obvious. I find yours to be just a bit more subtle, and the arc is a little bit. Yeah, I mean, is that something that you're aiming for?
Our readers are really tough. Our readers are highly informed. Okay. They are highly educated.
They don't want it pre-digested.
They hate that. And they let us know. So it's a weekly challenge here to keep the bar high enough for our readers. And, if I wanted to start a media company and just go for numbers, it would be, I don't know, something like Cat Video Monthly or something. You can do that.
You know where to get the clicks.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, but if you want to, we do a very different thing.
So you're looking for quality.
Well, it's
Looking
really
for high quality.
I think one of the things here is that you got to pick your lane, and the mistake that so many people make is that they take the same sort of approach that they would to youth marketing or general consumer marketing, and then they say is, oh, we'll just do that and we'll just move it a little older. And so if you're a younger population is a much more cohesive demographic. The culture is much more cohesive. So you can talk to a 20-year-old probably anywhere in the world at this point, and they're going to understand what you're talking about. They're going to understand your references. They're going to get it in a kind of a mass way. You don't really need to splinter it that much. But as people get older, I had this conversation with Paul Irving a couple weeks ago, who's the director of the Milken Institute. And we were talking about how as people, I mean, we found this in our interviews, and he finds it from his quant data, that what happens is there are all these demarcations that happen. So, there's education and geography and health and income. There's what's very important to us is how do people see themselves in the future? So are they looking forward, or are they've just had enough and they just want to look back, which is fine. We don't have a problem with that. But as people get older, it becomes really quite tribal, how they see things. And so if you try to approach a large group, your messaging by nature has to be kind of watered down. And so you're not really saying anything. You can't really say anything too specific. You need to be very generic, and therefore it doesn't really resonate with anyone.
Yeah, it's Seth Godin talks a lot about this. Finding the smallest viable audience.
Right.
And it's exactly what you're saying. You're not watering down. You're not going to the masses. You're picking your people and going for the smallest viable, which I thought was very. I think you're right. It's very different from how we're usually taught to share our content.
Well, and I think that one of the things that we've learned is that, and I sound like I'm like some old wise person about this, but we've only been doing it for 4 years. But one of the things that we've learned here is that by illuminating a certain very focused way of life, it brings up possibilities of what can be. And so the readership is actually much wider and much more diverse than the sort of people that we profile, or the people we think are our targets. So, people say that we're very kind of, I don't know, a certain kind of like creative urban kind of person. And there's some truth to that. But our audience is really, as we were talking earlier, it's global. I know that they live in all kinds of places that I've never heard of, because we do a small amount of merchandise that we sell. And I send these things to people like all over the world, to places I've never heard of. And they're not big cities. They're smaller places. And what people are doing is they write to me and they say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for showing me this alternative. Like, this is how I feel in my head. This is my tribe. There just isn't anybody I see around me that's like this. So thank you for validating me.
It must be so gratifying.
Oh my gosh, it's like, if I've been having a bad day, I go to like one of her comment sections and I read it. I think, okay, we're doing the right thing. This is good.
It's I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing that's a different experience than when you were doing a lot of big ad photography. I mean, I don't know that you were getting a lot of
Zero.
gratitude from the.
Zero. I mean, even, I functioned at a pretty high level. And I worked for a lot of big publications. And, maybe once a year, literally once a year, I would get a piece of fan mail saying like, nice picture of whoever. And I would feel great. I think, oh, that's wonderful. Somebody noticed. But this is, we didn't necessarily set out to move the culture or to have this kind of impact. But we do. And the reason there are a lot of people who function in this space who deal with numbers and policy, and advocacy. And that's not really our thing. What we communicate in a different way. And we say, this is what this looks like. This is how this can be.
And there's beauty here.
Exactly. Why can't things be pretty? Such a revolutionary concept. Only revolutionary when you put it into people this age. And so we actually do have a lot of impact in a way that other people don't. Like we don't. Yeah, our name is ageist. So you would think we are, big fighters against ageism. And we're not. We feel
it sounds like it's a secondary,
I
was going to, you didn't set out that way, but it's happening and it's gratifying. And as well as I do, that one of the best ways to age well is to be doing gratifying work.
Absolutely. And we're able to move the needle because we're not particularly shrill and we don't demonstrate in the street. We don't lobby politicians or any of that.
Right.
We just do something much simpler. We just say, this is what this looks like. And you can have this if you want or not. Whatever you're comfortable with. And it shows that it's the power of attraction. And, as I mentioned earlier, like half of our audience is under 45 and
that is amazing.
Right? And a quarter of them are under 30.
Yeah.
And they look at us because they want to be like us. And it's making things like health and vitality and having ambition and wanting to have a sense of agency in the world, making just showing yeah, why not? Why should this stop?
And the wonderful part as we get older, and I don't know so much for men, but for women, they're really coming at it like, I don't care what people think anymore. And it gives a whole new freedom to say, oh, by the way, what do I like to wear? Where do I want to travel? What do I want my house to look like? So there's this whole piece. And as a psychotherapist, I see this all the time with people in their third chapter saying, I used to care and I don't care anymore. And then you offer them this sort of buffet and say, what looks good to you?
Well, and you bring up an interesting point about, people don't age the same. People age differently, and the gender split is really rather dramatic and not what we would have thought. So, like what we see with this endless struggle of finding guys, because I've got 10 awesome women for every guy, and it's this funny I don't really know exactly why. I've talked to a lot of people about this who are smarter than I am, but I can tell you without a doubt that what happens is that in the people that we speak to, the women become much more vivid and much more like, game on, this is my time. Let's do this thing.
I love that word. Yeah, the vivid, yeah.
And the men, it's the opposite. They kind of recede. And not all. I don't mean to make an overall judgment like that, but that's sort of what we find. And, I think there's probably a lot of reasons for this that people have told me, but if I had a conversation with a gentleman he was the director of I believe it's called the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. Mm-hmm. And we were on a panel together, and I mentioned this to him. And I said, could you have any thoughts about this? It's really puzzling to me. And he said, well, yeah. He says, what's going to happen in the near future is you're going to be at a board meeting, and the board members are going to say, we need some more diversity around here. We need to get some men in the room. And
oh my goodness.
Right? And he says that's what's happening. So it's a really interesting, it's a whole other topic, but it's an interesting intersection of people living longer, people wanting to live longer functional lives, and then this kind of gender change that seems to happen in like the 50s or early 60s about how like the women really take the lead. And it's I interviewed Gloria Feldman, who was the former director of Planned Parenthood, and she took over that organization at 55, having never done anything like that. And she did, which is a controversial but an intense job, no matter how you look at it.
That's right.
And she did it for 10 years, and now she runs an initiative for women called Take the Lead. And I asked her about this, and she said, yes, absolutely. This is exactly what is happening. So that'll be something to see in the next few years, I think.
I have a theory. Let me float it and see if it makes sense. I think if men in general are really valued for their ability to make income, produce income, perhaps, and I don't know what the age or the numbers are, but perhaps if that income is starting to change, if they are stopping to work and maybe they're living off retirement or a side gig, it might be, they may feel less important and less worthwhile or vital. My usefulness is perhaps in question, where I think women less define themselves by their income. And so they can really, bloom in different ways as they get older.
It's, I think it's definitely a factor. I think that men are programmed to achieve at higher and higher levels constantly. And at some point that is unsustainable. Maybe they just get tired. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. We see, probably more women starting their own businesses. More women taking the lead in community things. And you see what's happening in American politics with suddenly, my gosh, there's all these women. It's amazing.
Yes, it is. It is really amazing. We've lived to see some huge changes in the culture.
Yeah.
In our lifetimes.
Yeah, and look at who, we don't deal in politics, but just to say Nancy Pelosi is she's 78? And doesn't really seem to be pulling back too much. Whatever we think of her.
Right.
She's a force to be reckoned with.
She certainly is, and she's a grandmother. And,
right?
Yep. That's wonderful. So I'm curious because you have you want people who are sort of average in some ways, like the regular person who's doing
Yeah.
really fascinating things. So how do you find these people?
Well, initially it was quite difficult because nobody wanted. So I can tell you how the culture has moved. When we first started this, we would approach people and we'd say, "Hey, we think you're doing really interesting things here. I think that we'd like to do a profile of you." And they would say, "Okay," and I would say, "How old are you?" I'm like, "Well, I can't tell you that." And it was really hard in the beginning to get people to, say like, "Oh, I'm whatever age I am." And now it's a very different thing. That's
4 years down the road. Four-year difference.
In 4 years, that has changed. So
Fascinating.
now the age becomes a point of pride. It's no longer something to be ashamed of or to be hidden. It's, I'm 54, I'm doing this.
And look at me go.
68, this is what I'm doing. I'm sorry if you have a problem with that, but this is what's happening.
Yeah. Has it really reinforced your own optimism about your own life, David, and where it's going?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think that people, one of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning, the Frankl book. And it's, this is now my purpose is ageist. And I think for me personally, it's this central organizing mission in my life now. And I think that that's really important. There's something that, I think it was Sebastian Junger wrote a book about tribes, and he said something about, I think the phrase is like, humans don't mind hardship. In fact, they like it or they thrive on it. He says what they really can't handle is not feeling necessary or important. And it's this, for me personally, like this is my world. This is what I do. And I found this thing that really only I can do. And I'm just kind of, the skill set that I bring to it, other people don't have.
That's beautiful. It's almost as if even with your huge career and your successes, there's a way in which that was like the grooming for what you're doing now, which is a funny way to think about it, because most people would say you've made it, you've really made it. And but if you put it in a wider frame, that was just your warm up. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but, what's interesting is there's all these things that I found I have capacity for that I had no idea about. Like I just thought, I'm a pretty good photographer, okay, but I'm like an awesome speaker. I had no idea. I'm really good at it. I'm really fun.
I saw your TED. Yeah.
Right? It's really fun. And so I did like 6 big international conferences last year. Like, who in their wildest imagination would have thought that, or I didn't think I could write. And I can't tell you how much I have to write every week. And people seem to think I'm kind of good at it. I had no idea. Like, it's because we have this, I think all of us, we're just, we have this poverty of imagination of what is possible. And it's, one of the things that we present at Aegis is we say, there's more possibility, right? It's more than what you've been told. And you don't have to pick from the buffet if you don't want to. That's fine. But if you want to, there's a lot more out there. Like we have so much more capacity. There's so much more we can do.
The world is opening, not closing.
Right, exactly. And that's our... I know there's a lot of people who have a great, there's a lot of challenges. There's people with health challenges and financial challenges, and this stuff is very real, and it's hard. And I do not in any way mean to minimize that. But on top of that, wherever you're at, there's probably something else that we're not thinking about. We all suffer from this delusion of what our capacity is. And we say, oh, I could never learn that. Or I could never do that. Or I can't go there. Well, why do you think that? That may not actually be true. And my wife told me for 10 years, she said, you're an amazing speaker. You should do this. And I just laughed and I said, no, I'm a photographer. I'm the quiet guy behind the camera. And we need these people on the outside telling us this. And we need this, like what we provide. Just examples and saying like, oh, they did this. Oh, there was the woman we did this week, she had no artistic background at all. Like, zero. And at 60, she's a Brazilian woman. I think her granddaughter, somebody in her family gave her a camera. Well, at 64, she's won all these international competitions. She's in museum shows. She's an incredible photographer. And it's like, how did that happen? Like,
wow.
and she says, like, I never had any idea that I had capacity for this or that I would enjoy it. It just
what
never.
A gift.
It never crossed my mind, right?
What a gift. Yeah.
And I think we all have this, and it's just keeping that optimism and keeping that positivity and saying like, hey, you can do this if you want, and it's okay. Younger people have a lot of optimism. I mean, they feel that there's a lot of possibility, and for some reason, as we get older, we think like, oh, I can't learn another language. That would be impossible. Or this whole like, I can't learn to code. How could I do that? Well, absolutely you can. There's no question about that.
Yes.
It's going to be a little harder, but I didn't say it was going to be easy. I just said you can do this if you want to do this.
Yes. I really found that to be true in qualifying for the National Senior Games. Is my tennis friends were saying, this is so awesome, you're going to Albuquerque. And I thought to myself, I'm not Serena Williams, you could be going too. I just showed up,
Right.
and it's
Right.
like this great, oh, it's so exciting, and you're going to be with all these senior athletes. And I thought, yeah, you know how to buy a plane ticket. And, you have to qualify, but let me say, it wasn't really that hard. And I'm just doing it because it seems like an incredible adventure. And why wouldn't you?
Well, the language you used is, I just showed up.
Yeah.
Right? It's really that.
Yes.
You got to show up, and you got to, you had to practice. You had to put in the work.
Yes.
But that you're not Serena Williams. I mean, you may be, I don't know, but
no, I'm not.
but these things are. I mean, that's what we try and tell people. This is attainable. This isn't superhero stuff. You can do this.
Absolutely. But it feels, there's such it's such a I don't know if I'm using this word right, but it's so enriching to be able to have an experience like this, even though it wasn't that hard, but just continuing on. Maybe for the example of the woman you profile, just keep going out and taking pictures, even though sometimes they don't look that great. You just keep persevering. Right. And that's the part that I've really learned, is just this idea of grit. Is it may not look great, but you just keep doing it, and eventually it starts looking pretty good.
That's right. And it's, at being a little older, we have a little more of that. And it's really, the limits are all internal. So it's those messages that say like, I can't study this book. I'm going to watch television. I can't train tonight. I'm going to eat donuts or some silliness.
Exactly. It's those little choices.
Yes. It's a choice. And we don't disparage anyone who, if you don't want to do this, that's like fine. You should live your life the way you want to. I'm not going to tell anyone how to live their lives.
Right.
But I will say there are other possibilities, and I will present those. And you can pick as you like.
Do you have any sort of words of wisdom for our listening audience, David? People who are just starting to recognize that maybe there are more possibilities, but they don't even know where to start. And I get this a lot in my therapy practice, right? People who come in smart, great at their careers, worked hard, raised their family, all that, and now all of a sudden they're sort of got their mouth dropped open a little and say, I don't know what to do next. I have never had the luxury of asking myself, what do I like to do?
I'm a big believer in action.
Okay.
I think right action leads to right thinking. Right. Okay. I'm an action person, so I need to move. I need to do something. And by me taking actions changes my thinking. And I encourage people to start acting and eventually to act as if. And then you will act with confidence. And this will change your thinking. And I tell people you can start like really small. If, say, you're really concerned about your health and your body and you feel like you're out of shape and you can't do anything, you can probably walk. So why don't you go walk 3,000 steps today? You can do that. Just do that. Do that for a week. And maybe next week do 4,000. And then, in a month you do 10,000. No big deal. And then you can go and you can start lifting weights. You can do other things. But to me, this is my personal experience, when the thinking starts, that's the enemy. Right? Because that's not
brilliant. Yep.
Right? Because it's not
your friend. It's a dark.
It's not your friend. No.
What does Anne Lamott say? It's a dark alley that I don't want to go in alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, the solution to that is just do stuff and stop thinking about what the right thing to do is. Just do anything. So, if you have trouble making friends, like loneliness is a huge issue.
Oh, sure.
Make it your job to every day when you get in an elevator, you say something to someone in the elevator. And you just make it up. And you just say, wow, really like your shoes. Wow. Hey, it's not raining today. Isn't that awesome? And you just took an action that just smashed your internal belief that says you can't make friends and you're lonely.
Yeah.
If you feel useless, go open a car door for somebody. Just hold the door open for somebody. Like, change that tape. And I mean, this is just my personal experience. Like, if you would have told me 4 years ago, think through a grand plan for how you're going to change the world, I wouldn't have gotten out of bed.
Right. No, and you're using these very, tried and true cognitive behavioral therapy methods with a touch of self-compassion.
I don't know. That's just what works for me. And other people may be different, but I see a lot of the, I've been thinking, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Well, that's a really big problem, right?
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that one, yeah. And things evolve, it's not, I mean, maybe there are people out there that have these kind of moments of just lucidity and it's like, okay, I've seen the light, I'm going to go do whatever.
This
And
big thing. Yeah.
amazing. I don't know anybody like that. It's generally, we educate ourselves little bits at a time of what we're capable of and what we're good at. And, the enemy is this sort of like, looking for the perfect sort of leads to a sort of procrastination, and which will ultimately lead to like a paralysis of like, oh my God, I can't get out of bed because I don't know what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Well, let's make the question a little smaller.
That's great advice. I think that's really helpful. Where can people reach you and learn more about? Yeah.
Yeah, so we publish a digital magazine called Ageist, and the URL is weareageist.com. If you feel the desire to contact me directly, you can reach me through there. We're on a lot of the social channels. We have a very active Facebook group, which is called We Are Ageless. And which is kind of how I feel about myself, and most people in the group feel that way. And I speak a lot, and to the best of my ability, I return people's emails. But I sometimes I'm sorry if I miss yours.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get a lot of them, and I'm. It's an oversight.
Low down on the list and you lose them.
Gosh, yes. Yep. I feel it's so embarrassing. Like, oh gosh.
It's been such a pleasure, David, talking to you about your project, but also just your general outlook. I think it's going to be really helpful for our audience.
Gosh, I hope so. It's been really. I mean, you provide me a great service by just being able to speak with you. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you. And I'll direct people to We Are Ageist, and I think you're going to be getting some new fans.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Look forward to it.
Thanks, David.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. And please consider becoming a patron of the show. You will get access to exclusive bonuses, and you will be part of the Zestful Aging community. Keep us going strong. Go to patreon.com/zestfulaging. See you next time for another episode of Zestful Aging.